Like all of my other concertos, actually, sort of it's the soloist that commissioned the work. They really wanted the work from me, and in both cases it was the second work that they commissioned, so I already knew them quite well, and so we didn't need to talk about the instruments during the work because I knew them. And then, when the work was finished, it's then that we worked many hours together. Sanya flew from Belgrade, and she came here, and we had coffee, and then we worked, and many hours, many times. And the same with Alan, but Alan was traveling a lot, so we did it on Zoom. But many sessions, so in total probably 12 hours for each concertos. And then, when we came in with together, we were a team, and it was just a matter of making the orchestra understand our vision and all working together so that it would be exciting. And I think that when you record concertos, that's super important, that you come to the orchestra as a team and you know what you want to do. And that was just really a great pleasure because I know both soloists and they are good friends as well. For me, it's exactly the same, because when I write the work, it's like making an object, and I want to make the perfect object, and when it's done, it's like something that is outside of me, and then I don't find any difference conducting Beethoven or my own works. I have a funny story about that actually. Sort of a few years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I was working in a park and I was starting to sing music, and I thought that's really nice, and I just can't remember who is the composer that wrote that and wrote the piece, and I got really annoyed because I thought I should know, I mean, come on. And then suddenly, after a few minutes, I realized it was my music, and I was very pleased because I thought, oh, I like it. And but the thing is that then it's really that it's when it's written, it's not mine, and I just try to make the best when I conduct, and I love music, and I just try to live through it, and it's like telling a story. I think that for me, what was important in writing the concerto for mandolin was to make it a big work, like you have the big concerto by Paganini or Tchaikovsky that are very brilliant. And I'm a violinist, and when Alan, the mandolinist, told me, you know, it should be easy for you to write a mandolin concerto because the left hand is exactly the same. So I thought that I would try to use all my knowledge of the violin with the mandolin. But the thing that is very different is the sound. The sound world is totally different. And so your imagination works differently, even if the technique of how you write for the notes is similar for a violin, but for me the sound world is closer to a high note of a piano, or because it's very precise, and it's a magical sound, the sound of the mandolin. So it's I use the Paganini as a possibility of virtuosities more than idea of sound. In general, I'm interested in having variation on the same piece. So like I did 2 concertos for saxophone, one for full orchestra and one for string orchestra. I did many versions of the same piece, a lullaby, that's got about 12 versions, one for string quartet, piano solo, piano duo, string trio, and etc. And the second reason is that I think that Shakespeare, as an author, lends himself to the big form and to big things. And so I thought that taking this song cycle that was for voice and piano, and not changing the voice at all, but making it with orchestra, would help me with colors. An interesting point is that I always find that if you are going to write from the start, you got an idea that you are going to do 2 versions of the work, you should start with the version that got less instruments, because it's always possible to add things, add more melodies and things like that. Removing them is problematic. And so in this case, that's why the version for voice and piano, that's called sonnets, was first. And actually sort of the second one is almost 20 opuses after is second. And these Shakespeare songs, and that's the last version of the work, I promise. Sanya Romic, the oboist that commissioned me the concerto, she wanted to commission a concerto for several years, and when finally it happened, we talked about what type of work. And she said that she wanted something about 20 minutes long, which is not very long compared to my violin concerto or piano concerto that are 30 minutes long. And I thought, maybe instead of doing 3 short movements, I could do 2 long movements, equally long, so about 10 minutes each. And I thought to myself, because it's a challenge, because 3 is easy, you do fast, slow, fast, and you've got it. 2 is more tricky. And I thought we need to finish. For me, the concerto is the heroic form, so it's like someone fighting the destiny and winning, hopefully. So I thought, what do I do with 2 movements? And I thought I'll do it like starting to tell a long tale, an adventure, and so it will start slow. So the first movement will be slow, and hence that's why I call also the concerto legend. Because it's like that, it's like telling a tale and gradually it gets, and then it's mad and ending like a concerto. It used to be a lot easier when I was younger, and people asked me about my influences when I was 20 years old, because then I was just out of school. Basically, now that I'm older, it's different, and the question about what influenced me as a conductor and as a writer, a composer, is an interesting one. I think that as a conductor, actually what influences me is the fact that I'm a composer. So I see the music in a different way. For example, I think that music is always about contrast and transition. And I give you an example. You take, for example, different authors. So let's take Beethoven violin concerto. So he starts with pam 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 pam, then da dee da da, and you think the phrase that follows the first bar is very lyrical and slow, and it feels magical because of the first pam 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 that are short. So you think contrast, but it's not the only work that has got that. You can take, for example, Schumann piano concerto. You go padam 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 pam, and then da 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 da. And then you take, for example, my mandolin concerto recorded here. It's the same. So you got a first bar that goes with the strings, and then you got the woodwind that goes da 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 da. So opposition of the short and the long. But of course, when you are a composer, you don't think, okay, I'm going to do this and this, because otherwise it's academic and it's not alive. It comes naturally to me. But when it's done, I understand what's the purpose of it, and that's what I use for the conducting. The understanding of the precious things that make music work. I would say other things that when I finish writing a work, as a composer, I do what I dislike doing, I do what I call the editing. So the work is completely finished, the notes, the rhythm, and I've got to put dynamics. Dynamics are not precise, and they are relative things, because you've got only 6 or 7 possibilities, piano, mezzo piano, and mezzo forte, forte, and etc. But there are thousands of ways that things can be different. And dynamics for me express a feeling and not a loudness, and I think it's true for most music. And so when it's like when you wake up in the morning and people ask you, how do you feel today? You will not say, oh, I'm feeling sort of medium loud or medium soft. You feel happy, you feel sad, you feel sleepy, and it's the same. Music is not about loudness, it's about feeling. And of course certain loudness leads themselves to have certain experiences, but it's a combination. And I would say that my conducting is influenced by that. I conduct the works how I imagine them to be, and the transitions are the special parts, how you go from one place to another naturally, so that it appears like it couldn't be otherwise. As a composer, it's different. My influences, I started to compose when I was really, really young, when I was 6 years old, on my big heroes, if you want, were Beethoven, Bach, and Mozart. And you would say that it's strange because sort of it's a long time ago and my music is modern. So even when I was interested by the music of Beethoven, my style was more, when I was 6 or 7 years old, like Shostakovich or Prokofiev or maybe even Schoenberg. But I think because the most important thing as a composer is to write something that is totally new. And if you are influenced by people that are closer to you, you will take the style rather than the quality. And if you look back a few hundred years ago, what you gain is the extreme quality, but you're not going to copy the technique. You use your own technique and you learn from them and you transpose it. And I think that's the most important thing. So that you don't copy and that you are. And it's like anything in life, sort of who you admire and what you aspire to as an influence of what you produce. And for me, there is something that I understood with time, is actually that for me there are two types of composers. There's a composer that are quite equal temperament, that like Beethoven or Bach, a certain type, and then the one that I called the maniaco-depressive mad composers that can be super happy and then suddenly totally depressed, like Mozart or Schubert, and I belong to that group. The group that creates the magical world, the fairy world, and then the total darkness. And I think that these people will always exist, whatever styles, because it's who we are as people.